The village had never known much about love, at least not the kind the world spoke of. Love, for most of the villagers, was a quiet thing, hidden beneath the rhythms of daily life. But Josephine, she knew what it was to love deeply and unconditionally. It wasn't about grand gestures or empty promises. It was something more. It was a knowing that when you embraced someone, you also embraced their world, their pains, their joys. But it was also about sacrifice. And Josephine had always been willing to give. Richard had come to the village a year ago, just a young man trying to find himself. He was searching for something, though he couldn't name it. Josephine had known this from the moment they first met. His eyes spoke of confusion, of a life lived in search of meaning. He wasn't from here, he was a city boy, from a place filled with noise and people who never seemed to stop moving. He had come to the village to escape, to find peace. But peace was something that Josephine had learned to make for herself. She was no stranger to hardship. They had met during the harvest season. Richard had come to help with the crops, offering his hands in exchange for something more than the money he could earn. He had stayed in the village longer than he had intended. At first, Josephine hadn't thought much of him. He was just another stranger passing through. But something about the way he moved through the world, as though he was both searching for answers and yet carrying the weight of something heavy, drew her in. He wasn't like the other men. He didn't talk much, but his presence was undeniable. Over time, their friendship had bloomed. He would come by her small cottage in the evenings after work, and they would talk about nothing in particular. But their conversations were never empty. They were full of the kind of quiet moments that made up the foundation of a life, full of meaning and unspoken understanding. Richard was a man of few words, but when he spoke, it felt as if the earth itself listened. And then, one evening, it had happened. It wasn't supposed to. It wasn't planned. In the heat of a summer night, where the air felt heavy with unspoken desires, they had crossed a line. It was a mistake, Richard had said afterward. But Josephine had known that sometimes mistakes were just the heart's way of telling you something. She hadn't been scared. She wasn't someone who feared consequences. She had lived her life with grace, with the understanding that things happened for reasons that were not always clear. Josephine had known that her life would change forever that night. But she hadn't feared it. She had welcomed it, because she knew who she was. The pregnancy was a quiet confirmation of what she had already known in her heart. It was a reflection of love, of something deeper than just physical connection. It was the seed of something new, something fragile, but also something powerful. A life that was growing within her, not just her child, but her own strength. Her own worth as a woman. Richard, on the other hand, had